online. And I didn't make much of it. It was just a little bit of an experience. And my goal was still to go into M&A, investment banking. So I went back to university after my placement. I applied to every single bank. I got rejected by every single one of them. Some of them didn't even reply, but that's Allah's life. And then for some reason, one day I was at the library, and this colleague of ours, the BBAs will know, Laura Minelli, she just mentioned, "Oh, Naz, I applied to Amazon. You should too." And I was like, "Okay, why not?" So I applied, and it turns out, they were pretty happy with my application because e-commerce was actually something they valued a lot. I didn't even think of it. So yeah, I got the job. They extended an offer to me, and I joined the London office in 2017 to be a brand specialist and work with brands to grow their e-commerce presence. And then 2 years later, I got promoted, and I got an invitation to come to Dubai and lead partnerships in the UAE as we launched Amazon AE last year. And so, yeah, connecting the dots, it would have been really difficult for me to identify in 2015 that 5 years down the line, I'd be right here. But if I hadn't started my own e-commerce adventure, I'll call it, I would never in a million years even consider working at Amazon. A little bit of history and vision. I think this, I'll go through this quite quickly. You may know that Amazon's vision is to be the most customer-centric company. And sometimes it's easy to be quite detached because you look at a company that's worth $1 trillion, or a man who leads this company who's the richest man on the planet, and it's so difficult to understand what goes on behind, and why would Amazon even be considered one of the best companies when it comes to customer experience. But this has always been the vision of the company, and I can mention a few examples as we go forward. But I wanted to share with you also this flywheel. And the reason to why this flywheel looks a bit sketched out, doesn't look very professional, is because it was written by Jeff Bezos as he was driving from New York to Seattle to open Amazon. So when trying to explain to himself, and I believe to his wife at the time, what the model of Amazon was going to be, this was how he described it. So he starts with selection. So all he wanted to do is get people, is get books available on the website, which would improve the customer experience. Because if you go to a website and it has the book that you can't find in your local library, then it's a good customer experience. If customers know that they can find the book in the website, then it's going to generate traffic. If it's going to generate traffic, and further down the line, you're going to have more sellers, and that generates growth, and that allows you to negotiate better, have a better leverage power, and allow yourself to get a lower cost structure and lower prices, which in turn will drive customer experience. So that's the whole way the Amazon flywheel rotates, at least from the retail spectrum. I also wanted to touch upon some of the customer-driven key moments in Amazon history. These are just a few, but sometimes it's hard to understand how Amazon would ever even be considered a customer-driven company. So here are a few of them. Now, it may seem very natural to you when you buy something on Amazon. Sometimes it gets shipped from China or from India or from any other country in Europe or South America or whatever. But back in the day, Amazon was a company that was essentially just retail, in which Jeff and his team would buy books or buy CDs or DVDs. They would hold them in a warehouse called fulfillment center, and then they would sell them to customers. And so what that allowed them to do was to control the full experience, and also to negotiate some of the prices, try to boost up profit margins, etc. But with the introduction of the marketplace, it allowed anyone from anywhere in the world to start selling on Amazon. And at the time, this was very criticized by shareholders, by investors, because they were saying, you're essentially going to cut off, you're essentially introducing your own competition. It's like, imagine if Tesco or your local supermarket opened up a little square within the supermarket, and they said, anyone can come and sell their stuff here. And you were selling tomatoes for £1, and they would come there and start selling tomatoes for ATP. So no one would buy your tomatoes in your own store. And so this was the decision that was made, and it was the view was always the customer. How are we going to create a better customer experience? To finding a way of making pricing more competitive, and then and selection more competitive. So the Amazon Marketplace was born. Another example was the introduction of the Kindle. At the time, Amazon was mainly a books business, and for the first 5-10 years, even though there were other categories, books was the main chunk of the business. And so the introduction of the Kindle, in which Kindle books were selling for $1, and then we had other books were selling for $15-20. The profit on the Kindle was pretty much inexistent, as opposed to profit on books. But this was a way of saying, okay, the customers will want this. It's a good deal for them, so we're gonna, even if it costs us money, we're gonna invest in this. And it was, now today everyone knows the Kindle as the product that it is. And the introduction to Amazon Prime. I think if you follow the news nowadays, you will see that there's a lot of articles that talk about how expensive it is for Amazon to run Prime, to do a 1-day delivery, 2-day delivery. The truth is that there's a lot of pressure on the operational system and the fulfillment network that allows us to deliver this fast, but it costs a lot of money as well. And so when people say, oh, is Amazon going to be able to turn a profit into the Prime program? The answer so far has been mainly no, and it's been a tough one. But again, it just emphasizes how Amazon is willing to put profit on the back seat while focusing on the customer. Now I'm going to move to one of the main topics that I want to discuss, which is innovation. And to talk about innovation, I need to talk about 2 concepts that I was introduced from my first day at Amazon. The first one is day one culture. Day one essentially means that Amazon still wants to operate as a startup who has just started. And so when we walk in, nothing is kind of taken for granted. Stagnation is not really an option. You always look at ways in which you can innovate. It's day one. We're walking towards a long-term run. What would you do on your day one? There's a lot to do. And so this is how they keep encouraging innovation. And then 2-way door. We're very much encouraged to make mistakes, but make mistakes in a way that are reversible. So for example, if you're going to invest big time on a project, you need to make sure that you're able to walk out if it doesn't yield the results that you were looking to achieve. But that allows for some innovation, because if you spend 6 months working on something, and in 6 months' time you realize it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. You just walk back, go to your regular job, and you keep going. But if it does work, on the one chance that it does work, it can be a breakthrough innovation within the company. And there's many examples, but this essentially incentivizes people to keep innovating. Even if it doesn't result in anything, that door will be able to open on the way back as it opened on the way inside. So those are the 2 key concepts. And I wanted to give an example of Amazon Kindle. I've already touched on it, but this one right here on the left, the white one, is the first iteration of the Kindle in 2007. This one is in 2009, 2011, and this one is 2017, I think. And this is just to give you an example of how much has changed. In 2007, when Amazon launched the first Kindle, it was sold out, I think, in less than 6 hours. It was completely sold out, and it wasn't available for another month. So this meant that customers really wanted it. And I think if you remember, that was about the time of the BlackBerry. So this layout kind of made sense. But as time evolved, Amazon kept reiterating the versions because it kept getting more and more feedback and then making the necessary iterations to make sure that it kept up with the customer. If you think about BlackBerry's design, at the time it made a lot of sense, but then with the introduction of the iPhone and the touch screen kind of took the market, and they weren't able to keep up the pace, so they stayed behind. But the Kindle, I'm talking almost as if it was a company, but it's only a product. The Kindle moved, and customers kept helping Amazon driving in the right direction. Moving on to think big. So if you're aware of Amazon's 14 leadership principles, one of them is think big. So you always you don't think about something that you could do in a day. You think about something that can deliver a huge impact over the course of years. And some of the think big innovations that I would consider that Amazon has done in the past or is doing right now is one, voice technology. I think everyone's familiarized with Echo devices and Alexa. Deliver drone. so Prime Air. I don't know if you've seen this, but I'll give a brief insight into it. Amazon Go. I know everyone has seen the Amazon Go technology, and we have a couple of stores in the US, mainly in Seattle, still in trial phase, and it will eventually expand. And the dash button, and this one I don't imagine many people have heard about, but I'll go through it. The dash button is a very important one to me because it is a perfect example of a big innovation that failed, and that's okay. If anyone remembers, Amazon launched more than 10 years ago, launched a phone. We were trying to compete with Apple and with Samsung and all of those players, and it failed. It simply just didn't happen. There was a lot of money put behind it, and it never got traction. The dash button was quite similar. The dash button, for those of you who don't know what it is essentially a button that has a little sticker on the back, and you can buy this button from Amazon, and you can sync it to whatever product you want and put it on whatever part of the house you want. So, for example, if you have toilet paper, you go to the bathroom and you stick this little button to the wall, and when you see that you're running out of toilet paper, you just click on the button, and Amazon sends the product to you automatically. You don't even have to go on the website. You just click on the button, and the unit that you've chosen, whatever product it is, toilet paper or it can be water, it can be dishwasher, tablets, it can be whatever. It just goes to you. But it never really got traction. Nevertheless, it's still a great invention, and it's still a great product. So this is something that I wanted to touch on. Voice technology is a very interesting one. Why? Because if you think about the way that we order today, we go online, and we feel comfortable with putting our credit card details or debit card details online, and we choose the product that we want to choose, and there you go. But with voice technology, it actually allows you to say, Alexa, please order pasta. And Alexa will just place it on your basket, and you say, Alexa, please add water to my basket. And now shop. Use my card ending in XYZ. Just like that. And so this is something that's being worked towards. It's something that is happening in the UK already, and we see some orders coming through voice technology. But you can imagine that we have the infrastructure for the future, and it's still being iterated and improved, and hopefully it'll be ready. But again, innovation depends on the customer as well. You will never be able to completely innovate if customers don't accept that innovation and take it into their own hands. Delivery drone. So delivery drone is a very interesting one because drones are kind of a new thing, but not that new. So we've already done deliveries through drones in more secluded areas, and it makes sense. For example, in the north of England. But if you think about the possibility of having drones flying all over London or all over Milan, and you're walking out and you can see like 100 drones flying over you, there's going to be concerns, security concerns. There's going to be people who don't like it, drones that have an accident and can injure people. And so I think this one will be one for the long run. We'll see what happens. And Amazon Go, I think you're all familiar with the Amazon Go concept. In 2017, Amazon purchased Whole Foods, which is a supermarket chain, and that partnership will allow Amazon Go to be implemented all around the world in due course. I'm not sure when. The last point of my presentation is sustainability. So I think you're all familiar with the Paris 2050 agreement, climate pledge, and it's the people, essentially us, we're putting pressure on our governments to act in a sustainable way or to have a sustainable goal. But I think a lot of people lose a little bit of trust in their governments. So, for example, the US just removed themselves, and people start looking at big organizations. If you look at Amazon's market capitalization, it's about 1.2 trillion. That's 5 times bigger than Portugal. So Amazon is bigger than many countries in the world. So of course, the impact it has over the environment is also very, very big. So for those of you who've heard about it, Amazon announced a climate pledge at the end of last year. which essentially means that they're going to power the global infrastructure with 100% renewable energy by 2030 and be carbon neutral by 2040. And so that's a lot more ambitious than what most countries are committing to. But again, it's the right thing to do when it comes to a company that has such a huge footprint in the world. In addition, and because this is a plan, a lot of people, what a lot of countries are doing is pushing those initiatives towards later in time. So when it comes to 2040, they'll probably start working on something to deliver by 2050. But with Amazon, it's being gradual increase. So by 2024, hopefully, based on the projects that we currently have live, 80% of our energy will be renewable. And I'll walk you through it. I'll walk you through it in the coming slides. But the first point that I wanted to cover within sustainability is frustration-free packaging. I think everyone knows that the more we shop online, the more boxes and papers and litter comes in our deliveries. And so one of the things that Amazon has been working on for the past 10 years is how can we adapt the boxes or ensure that we're sending less trash to customers? How can we reduce the number of packages that we're sending to customers? And this was a project that I actually worked on while I was working in London, because I was working with a couple of vendors who were selling pet food to see how we could create packaging in which the product came to our fulfillment center and then it left to the customer as it is. We wouldn't need to overpack it or put any sort of plastic or anything in it. But obviously, this kind of initiatives take money, and normally the brands will have to invest some sort of money in it, and a lot of the brands push this back. So it's our responsibility as brand managers to work with the brand and try to make sure that they adapt sustainable ways of working. And we do have a process for it. So the way it works is we try to work with the brand to design a packaging that is long lasting and it's not going to break in transit. We then test it. We have a team that tests these packages, and then we give a certification. And a certification can be tier 1, frustration-free packaging. It means that the customer will receive the package. The package will be adjusted to the product, so it won't be a huge box or like a toothbrush. The customer will open the package and it'll be the product. No trash, no nothing. Tier 2 is SIOC. So SIOC means ship in own container. It means that, for example, if you have a dog and you buy a 15 kg bag of dog food, it will not even have a bag. It will go the product as it is straight to your door, and the bag should be strong enough to not break in transit. And tier 3 is prep free, so it's come from one side and enters the customer's house. It doesn't even need prepping, doesn't need anything. And so since 2015, we've reduced the weight of outbound packaging by 33% and eliminated over 800 tons of packaging material, which is approximately 1.5 billion shipping boxes. So it's very easy to point fingers when we don't actually know what's happening in the background. And obviously, companies as big as Amazon normally take a lot of blame for a lot of things. But when you actually do a deep dive and try to understand what's actually happening and how people like me are working to try to make the company a little bit more sustainable, and then you look at these metrics and like, wow, 1.5 billion shipping boxes is quite a lot. It's a considerable amount. The second commitment was to purchase 100,000 electric vans by 2030. So we were already working with a company, and we've already designed what these will look like. So these will be electric vans, and you'll also have technology inside that will allow us to do route optimization, get the product straight away from the van, and get it to the customer. And so by 2021, these will most likely or hopefully be hitting the streets. By 2022, hopefully 10,000 electric vans will be in the streets. And by 2030, all of the 100,000 vehicles will be in the streets. This will essentially mean that Amazon will become the most sustainable fleet have the most sustainable fleet of delivery vehicles in the world. And this is just a start. There's also other commitments in India in which we're working towards getting electric tuk-tuks, and there's other commitments as well. And then lastly, I also wanted to touch on the 5 renewable energy projects that we're working on. And so this essentially means that we want to power our own operations completely through renewable energy in the US, Australia, and China, which are huge markets. Well, Australia not that big, but it's within our scope. So in China, there's going to be 128,000 mega. Well, you can see the numbers. In China, we're going to have a plant in New South Wales, in Australia, another, in Ohio, 2, and 1 in Virginia, so 3 in the US. In Australia, we'll be producing enough renewable energy to power 40,000 homes for a full year, and in the US, 69,000 homes per year. And these 5 renewable energy projects, in addition to everything else that we have, like 31 facilities with solar and wind renewable energy projects, and 60 solar rooftops, that will allow us to power 680,000 homes in the US for a full year. And I know, like, when I throw in a lot of numbers, it may seem like it's not that big, but if you think about it, powering over 500,000 homes for a full year without contributing to any sort of emission is huge. It's really big. So I'm happy to see that happening. One last thought is that my opinion is that companies, especially big corporations who have a huge market capitalization, have a big responsibility in the impact they have not only on innovation but also sustainability. Innovation because they have more capital to invest, and they have enough capital to take risks that will then allow us to progress. But also from a sustainability point of view, they have the weight on the world on their shoulders, because a lot of operations happen through our hands, and so it's the company's responsibility to ensure that we're operating in a way that's not going to damage the planet in the long run. So yeah, this is me. This is my presentation. Thank you all for listening, and yeah, should we go for questions?
Okay. Thanks so much, Nasser, for the presentation. That was really insightful. Before we get on to the questions from others, I had a question myself. So obviously you worked in the London office up until about a year ago. Now you're working in Dubai. So you mentioned about the day one culture and the two-way door. Does that still reflect in Dubai as well, or are there any cultural differences?
Yeah, it's yes. The answer is yes. There's many differences. You have to understand that Amazon was launched in pretty much every country, but in the Middle East, Amazon purchased or acquired Souk.com, and Souk.com was another e-commerce player, well, the biggest e-commerce player in the MENA region, so Middle East and North Africa. And so we only launched the first Amazon in the Middle East last year, about a year ago, which was Amazon.ae. But the team and the people, most of the workers are still from the Souk days. So you're coming here and you're trying to incentivize a new culture or implement a new culture and new ways of working. It's going to take time, and it's not going to be the easiest transition, especially because Amazon has very clear guidelines and clear ways of operating, and so yes, the day one culture is being adopted as time goes by, and so is the two-way door decisions. But again, one of the things that Amazon is doing is bringing people who are familiarized with these cultures from different areas of the world to work here in these offices. So it's easier to share that culture. I'm one of those examples, but there's many of my colleagues that came from Seattle, from Madrid, from different Amazon offices around the world, who came over here and are helping the team ramp up. So yeah, these ideas are being implemented slowly.
That's really interesting. So I guess that's quite a common theme when it comes to mergers and acquisitions. When you acquire a totally different company, there can be some cultural differences that I guess take time to kind of integrate. It's quite interesting. So we have a few questions. We'll open up for the first question. I think is Nicolo's got a question. Nicolo.
Jonas, thank you for your presentation. Yes, my question is say, pretty provocative, almost journalistic, I would say.
I like that. Okay.
As you stated before, Amazon is the most customer-centric company in the world. If I'm not wrong, the first leadership principle of Amazon.
Yeah.
I've recently read that Amazon is trying to encouraging users to buy less. For example, they try to put in the first page of the Amazon website the digital services they provide, like Prime Video, Kindle, etc. How much is difficult to satisfy the customer in a moment like this when you have stock shortage, logistic issue? Is the Amazon principle of customer-centric over, according to you?
Thank you for your question, Nicola. I think it's a really good question. I think now more than ever is when Amazon is proving to be the most customer-centric company in the world. And I read the same article as you. It's not completely true, but I can give some clarity. With COVID happening, we saw two things happening. We saw one, customers shifting to online a lot faster than we expected. So we saw a lot of people who weren't buying online at all, and now they didn't have any other option other to buy online. And of course, Amazon is one of the places where people are coming the most. And two, lockdowns being imposed in which our fulfillment center workers are not able to work the same amount of hours, or we're not able to operate in the same way as we were before, because obviously our warehouses run 24 hours. But when you have a lockdown, that's not possible. And so the way I think the way Jeff Bezos described not too long ago in the shareholders meeting presenting the Q1 results was, right now our focus is to deliver the essential products to our customers. It's right now our focus is not to sell TVs or phones, or it's not to sell things that we would otherwise be selling. Is to make sure everyone has water. Is to make sure everyone has toothpaste and shampoo and food and anything that's a consumable product that people need because they're at home and they don't have any other option, right? And so when you see that demand increasing substantially, you have to make a choice on if you're going to keep fulfilling the same way as you've been fulfilling during all this time, which is not going to be feasible because you don't have as many people working, you don't have as much time to deliver, and you have a lot more people buying, right? And so we made a choice, or the company has made a choice, to make sure that people who need these products have it with the utmost priority. And what ends up happening is that we need to deprioritize some other products. We're never pushing customers away and saying, no, we don't want you to buy right now. What we're saying is, if you do need these products, buy them right now, and we will deliver them as fast as we can. And so you will have seen what happened was we did less deals on products that weren't essential, or we did less events on around categories that were not as essential. That allowed us to focus on the categories that mattered and keep delivering within a certain time frame. You will have seen that many supermarkets or many other online players were, you'd buy today and you could only get the products in like 3 weeks, right? That was a fear for everyone. So Amazon, I think, has done a pretty good job, and we've been able to recover from a situation similar to that. And right now we're able to, we're in a much better position, and we're able to deliver products in a timely manner in most of the products. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
All right, nice. So I think we've got a few more. We've got Simone with a question now.
Yeah, thank you, Nasser. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. I think it's really insightful. Also, your experience in Dubai and London. So I just have a question regarding the culture, because it's something that is really fascinating me. And also the possibility, I have the possibility to start from a big company and then I move to a small one. So can you give us a tangible example in which Amazon culture is stressed and also is able, like a big company, to be flexible and to move forward and to find other opportunities? That is really a weakness and really a weakness in a great company with thousands of people. So can you give us an example in which they can have a culture that let people made a mistake and to search new opportunities?
If I can give a clear example of myself, probably not. I probably can't give an example of myself. I can give you a small example in which I've worked on projects before, in which I've wasted a lot of time and they never came true. But I also worked in one project in specific in which it worked really well, and then I got allocated a bunch of software engineers to work with me to help me deliver my project. But I think you're asking something more than this. You're talking about culture and the way the culture incentivizes some of these principles that I touched upon, which were these two, right? Okay, I'm gonna assume yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a difficult one to explain. I think one thing that I can say is that from the first day you join Amazon, you will have a bunch of trainings, right? You have like 3 weeks, which are basically just learning about the company and listening different people presenting about the company, and these are concepts that they bombard you with in a positive way, because it's really about adopting. It's really about trying to understand the culture as much as possible and then adopting it as you go along. Almost to a point where once you finish all that training and you get to work, you're almost looking for ways in which you can demonstrate these concepts. You almost want to do a mistake or want to work on something that you know that might not deliver, just because you want to be able to walk back the door and say, okay, I did a two-way door decision. But it's also very interesting because it allows us to, in moments of ambiguity or in moments of uncertainty, we're able to say, okay, we're going to try this. We don't have any data to back it up, but if it doesn't work, what's the worst thing that can happen? As long as customer experience is intact, we can go ahead, and worst case scenario, we walk right back. So it's the way that people communicate these ideas, and it's the way that people are willing to adopt them. Of course, as I am in MENA right now, these are still coming up, but in London, I saw this happening a lot. And then when you see your directors and your vice presidents talking about this, and when you see them actually exercising this in their meetings or in the way they lead their respective categories, then you see that it's more real than ever, and you know it's part of the company's culture.
Perfect. All right. So we still have a few more. We have a question.
Thank you, Nasser.
Thank you.
We have a question from Benedetta, who, interestingly enough, was our speaker last week. So she's also in the world of e-commerce and has a question.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting. I'm in the topic too. So you've talked about the whole packaging process and how is it focused on being sustainable. But it has happened to me a lot of times. I don't know if it has happened also to you, that like not only the original package is covered by plastic, but also it's like covered by a carton box which is like huge dimensions compared to the dimension of the original packaging. So I was wondering if like maybe there is a gap between the strategic part of the packaging process and the operational part. Like maybe sometimes the couriers do what they want with the packaging. I don't know. So I was wondering if like, you know, why is this happening, and if you can give like more insights on,
absolutely.
The process. Thank you
for the question. One question, do you have this experience with retail products or with third-party seller products? So sold by Amazon or sold by other sellers?
Both. I would say both, yes.
Okay, so with third-party sellers, so people who sell from their own home, I've been one of them. We cannot really control the way they pack. They're doing their packaging, right? We incentivize as best as we can, but there's not much control we can have. However, on the Amazon side, we're trying to do our best to work with brands. But for example, if you go to Adidas and you tell them, okay, from now on, I want you to start packing your shoes in a way that doesn't require an overbox or doesn't require plastic or doesn't require, that's going to be an investment from their side. And so it's very difficult to convince them to adopt a sustainable way of working that will ultimately damage their bottom line. So essentially, it's not a done work, and it's something that's been being worked on for 10 years. and it's going to be worked on for another 10 years. There's going to be a lot of negotiations with a lot of different vendors, a lot of different brands, and we need every single brand to adopt a sustainable way of working. Because if the brands don't do it, when the products come to our fulfillment center, they're already going to be wrapped in plastic, or they're already going to be laid out in a way that doesn't allow us to put it in one small box. And that's going to make it impossible for Amazon to then ship it to the customer in a clean way. So it's a bipartisan job that has to be done. It's not just on our side or the brand side. You have to work together. And these works are one-on-one basis, so it takes time.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Now I think we have a question from Angela. Welcome, Angela.
Hey everyone.
How you doing?
Hello.
I'm good. Hey Nas, thank you for your presentation. So I have a question. When you talked about customer centricity, I felt like you focused more on the products and services, and how Amazon really focused on having low prices, or lower at least than some of the competitors. From your perspective working at Amazon, how much does Amazon see itself not only as a retailer, but as a media business? Because from my understanding, one of the main ways that Amazon is able to have lower prices is through their media revenue. And in fact, I was reading the other day an article by eMarketer on how in the US this year, it's forecasted that Amazon will have roughly the same amount of ad revenue than Google and Facebook. And obviously Google and Facebook are pretty much a duopoly in the media world. So in terms of your day-to-day at Amazon, how much do you think Amazon is starting to see itself as a media business and not just as a retailer?
Thank you for your question, Angie. I missed hearing your voice. Okay, yeah, I can answer that question. So in 2018, the Amazon Retail Group and the Amazon Media Group kind of separated, not officially, but informally they separated in a way that people who work on one side don't have visibility on the other side, and people who work on the media side can't really see the retail side. So we're separate organizations, and the reason for that is because there was a study that came out a year or two ago that people in the US, over 50% of people in the US are shopping for, when they are Googling for a product or they're looking for what product to buy, they don't use Google, but the majority use Amazon. So when we start seeing that customers are using Amazon not just for purchasing, but also for discoverability or to find out more about a certain product, of course, it opens up a stream that's super important. Like you said, there's almost like a duopoly between Google and Facebook. So Amazon became a really big player in that area. Now, if it sees itself, Amazon is ever going to see itself as a media business, no, it will never be, because the ultimate premise will always be deliver the products to the customer in the fastest way possible at the lowest prices possible, and to make it super convenient. So yeah, the media business grew really, really a lot, and yeah, it does give a good volume to the business overall. But in essence, it's just a supporting factor, and it's something that came almost quite naturally into play as the customer behavior changed. But it's still a retail and a tech and a business that's diversified, such as AWS and etc. But media is mostly supporting.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. We still have a few more. So I think the next person is a written question by Sana. She's asking, what is your biggest highlight since working at Amazon?
Oh, that's a good question. The biggest highlight is something that I don't even remember, but I've been told that happened. Was in my first day, not my first day, but it was my first week. And there was one day that my manager, everyone's managers would come to the room and pick up their new joiners. And my manager came to pick me up, and she took me to the rooftop for us to have a conversation. And for some reason, it was super sunny in London, and it's not a normal thing. So I could barely open my eyes. Like I was really struggling with the sun. And then I remember looking at her and just asking, "Aren't you too young to manage me?" She was 26 at the time, and she took it to offense. Like she was offended by that. I found out later on, but I think that represented like that. It was such a genuine moment that I think that represented really well the culture that Amazon brings. They give a lot of responsibility to young people, and from that moment, I understood that wow, if I work hard and if I do really well, I can go to a far place at a young age. And I'm ambitious. So it was a kind of a key moment for me to understand that this company might be the right place to be. So yeah, I would say that one.
All right, quite an interesting one. We have a question from I think it's Daniel Anwar.
Hello, Danny.
I think he might be still trying to unmute himself. Okay, I think he might be having some problems, so we'll go.
Hey, you're right. No, I'm here. Sorry, guys. I'm muting myself. I'm muting myself the whole time. I was like, "What's wrong?" All right, sorry. Hiya, Nas. You all right, mate? How's it going?
I'm good, thank you.
Hiya, guys. You're right. All the other people in this group. Hiya. Good to meet. It's nice to see you. Nas, my question is, basically, in terms of work culture, with a lot of new and upcoming organizations like Facebook and Google, I've always seen Amazon, similar to those guys in terms of work culture. In my mind, anyway, I thought like they're flatter, they give responsibility to everyone. There's not much hierarchy. But recently I've read it's not as flat as I thought it was. In your experience, would you say that it's an organization that is flatter or has a hierarchy, if that makes sense?
Okay.
Your experience.
Yeah, I don't think it's flat at all. I think the more the organization grows, the more difficult it is to become flat. It depends on the area of the business.
Yeah.
But to give you an example, at Amazon, there's 12 levels, from level 1 to level 12. And level 2, the only person that's at level 12 is Jeff Bezos as a CEO. And then there's senior vice presidents at level 11. And then there's vice presidents at level 10. And then you have directors at level 8. There's no level 9. They kind of skip. I don't know why, but 9 is apparently, there's like a myth around the number 9, so everyone avoids it. So there's directors at level 8. There's senior manager or pre-directors at level 7. There's senior managers at level 6, managers at level 5, which is what I'm at. Then you have new joiners and brand specialists and whatever at level 4, or associates at level 4. And then level 3, 2, 1 is either supporting roles or fulfillment center roles. So I would say there's quite a bit of a hierarchy, but I don't see that as a bad thing, to be honest, because as an ambitious person, I want to climb up the ladder. I feel confident that I have the necessary tools to climb up. And at the same time, my manager is a senior manager, and her manager is a director. So, I can be a level 5, but I have constant contact with a level 8, and sometimes even with a level 10. So, yes, I think there's a big hierarchy, but it's a company with more than 500,000 people. If it was flat, it would be really difficult to coordinate and to assign ownership and to assign responsibility, accountability. It'd make it really difficult on that sense. So I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, mate, decent. Thanks a lot for that insight. And as usual, thank you, AITB, for this opportunity. All the best.
No worries,
see you. Bye. Ciao.
Now we have Sahib from Washington, D.C. with a question.
Hi, Nas. Thank you so much again, for that presentation on Amazon and your perspective about it. It truly was insightful. Actually, it's a question that touches two things that you've touched upon. I guess it's both the culture and innovation. And when I reflect upon it, my questions is not necessarily where does it end and where does it go, because you stated that Amazon is striving to be the most customer centric kind of company. But I was trying to think like the innovation itself, is it more driven by Amazon itself, or is it more about how like it responds very well to customer behaviors? Because like I guess I'm just trying to see like where does it come from, or is it whether if it's a cycle of innovation between like the customer and the company? Thanks.
Thank you, so I think that's a super interesting question. And the answer is it's a mix of both. It's almost like a cycle. The customer wants something and we make it happen, or we foresee that the customer will want something and we try to find a way of making it happen. So let me give you the example of the Kindle. We know that customers like reading, and at the time, everyone was reading through books. But books, I mean, they take space, they're very expensive, and if you read one book a month, it's a couple $100 you'll be spending. So you think of an idea, you think of a concept. How can you solve that problem? How can you allow a customer to carry all the books that they want in their pocket, and at the same time, how can you make it super cheap? So we understood what the customer wanted, and then we were able to create a product based on those wants before it even existed, right? I mean, at the time, the idea of a book in a screen or in a device was not very common. So it's a mix of both. On the other side, I can also tell you, drones, delivering products with drones. We know no customer has ever said, "Oh, my package came too fast," or "I wanted to only have received it tomorrow. I didn't want it today." So we understand that the customers want their packages delivered super fast or as fast as possible, hence Prime. But for customers who live very remotely, such as in the north of England, you'll know that some people live in like farms or like in villages that are not very, very populated. How do you deliver to these villages when there's like 3 orders a week and it's far from the nearest city, and you want to keep the delivery promise? So it's very difficult. But with drones, you'd actually be able to set it up, pick up the package, and get a drone to go deliver. The cost would be low and it would be pretty fast. And so the idea is to tackle customer pain points with innovation. And it's something that we know that the customer will want. Now, in this case in specific, we don't know if customers would be, or we don't know if everyone would feel comfortable with having a drone delivering their package. But we do know that customers who are quite secluded would like to have their products delivered as fast as possible. And so this innovation is a way of trying to address that problem. So yeah, it's a mixture of both. Of course, without customer interest, an innovation doesn't make any sense. But at the same time, with voice, for example, we already have the functionality for people to shop using voice, and very little people are doing that, right? Because there's still not enough customer trust. So it's something that builds over time. But yeah, innovation, what the customer wants, goes hand in hand. Without one, the other doesn't really happen.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I think we have about three questions, 4 tops, and I'd say after the 3 and 4 we end the session as
wow.
we're really overrunning. So we got a written question actually from Simone. So he's saying, do you see Amazon as a place where you can buy luxury brands?
Oh, this is a good question.
Luxury Amazon and in the future. Where do you see things going?
You know what? This is a really good question, because I once went to an event in which there was the founder of like a luxury brand, like a designer brand, and I said, "Oh yeah, Amazon Fashion is launching, and I'm quite interested in that space." And she turned to me and she said, "Come on, if you're going to buy clothes, you want people to be awed at you. You don't want people to laugh at you. So you'd never buy it on Amazon." And I was like, I took quite personal offense in that. I think the fashion products are quite good. But yes, Amazon essentially is starting to generate more and more partnerships with luxury brands. So in the UAE, you already see that happening. Hopefully in the US and in the UK, that will be happening soon. But essentially, we rely on the brand to want to sell on Amazon. So if we're talking about Gucci, for example, if Gucci has Gucci's or Louis Vuitton, super well-known brands, they don't need to sell on Amazon, right? Because the people who can afford these products, they can go to the shop and they could buy whatever. They can spend thousands of dollars. But because we're seeing such a, now especially with COVID-19, no one is able to go to the shops and spend the money in that kind of way. So for now, it starts making more sense for them to have an online presence. And maybe they are still selling through their own websites, they're well known enough. But some of the other luxury brands who are not that big are already using Amazon more and more. And that's something we want to make happening. We've already expanded in the luxury beauty segment. I don't know if anyone follows beauty quite closely. There's many luxury brands that are available on Amazon. Luxury phones. So, for example, we signed our contract with Apple last year, so we can officially fulfill iPhones, not just third-party sellers, but Amazon with original iPhones. And you know, it's an area that we're developing towards. We're trying to get there, but it's going to take time, and you know, it's a progress. There's still a lot of space for us to hit it.
All right, so we might see some more Gucci's on Amazon soon.
It might be. Who knows?
We might be Gucci gang on Amazon soon.
Sorry guys, I
Yep.
I just managed to join back in. I didn't hear. What do you have any examples of luxury brands that you're already selling on Amazon?
I do. On Amazon UAE, I can't talk about Amazon.com or .co.uk or in Europe because I'm not sure. But I can tell that in the UAE, it's very common for people to buy big brands all the time. So I know that we have like Lacoste, Hugo Boss, and a bunch of other brands like within that spectrum. Not enough. I don't think we have like the likes of Louis Vuitton and Gucci and Prada. But the second tier luxury we do have. And as I mentioned before, like some of these brands are too big for people to think about buying on Amazon, right? If you want to buy a $15,000 bag, you just go to the shop. You want the experience. But as time progresses, and with people being restricted and being from home, and people who still want to buy luxury goods, maybe we'll see a progress happening towards the e-commerce direction. Maybe we'll see that. We'll find out. Farfetch is already doing it very well. So
Yeah, I was about to say, like, how are you gonna, like, work with, against Farfetch and all of
yeah,
that?
I mean, they're targeted towards luxury only, so that puts them in a very good competitive advantage place. But I guess the goal of Amazon is to provide as many products as possible at the lowest price possible. So it's not the main area of focus, I would say, to get the biggest luxury brands.
Okay, thanks. Just because you mentioned, I thought I would give you some space. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks for the question, Susanna. We have a question from Hakeem, and Hakeem is saying, outside of work, so forget about Amazon for a second. How is lifestyle living in Dubai? How's the work-life balance?
Yeah, this one is an interesting one. So last 3 months, there's not really outside life, I think, for everyone in the world. But before that, it was a bit of a shock. So people, for some reason, people in Dubai, they're very comfortable with sharing WhatsApp numbers, and they're very comfortable with messaging me in particular, and calling me whenever they want, like cold calling in the morning at 8 in the morning or at 8 at night. For some reason, people feel very comfortable with that. And me being a partnerships manager, I'm in touch with dozens of people every day. And so it's a little bit strange when you come home after work and you have someone calling you at dinner time just because they think it's appropriate. So I think it's very difficult to get detached from work. And some people work very long hours, and they're emailing people at 2 in the morning. And I think I'm not really with it. I don't really like it. So I got some grit, and I started rejecting calls, and I started telling people off for even involving me in anything after 6 p.m. But it's a different culture, and outside of work here, sometimes you feel like work doesn't really finish, especially when everyone's so anxious about deliverables for some reason. But yeah, life is in Dubai in general. It's really good because on the weekends it feels like you are on a holiday, because you can just go to the beach, or I'm lucky enough I have a pool, so I can just go to the pool, or you meet with some friends, be completely off. It's pretty nice.
Nice one, nice one. So I think we've got 2 more questions, but I'll put it all in one. I'll integrate both questions. It's from Matteo, and he's saying, do you see Amazon potentially selling cars on their website in the future, given that Alibaba is doing that currently? And where do you see also the development of physical stores within the Amazon network? So, for example, you guys acquired Whole Foods. So 2 parts: cars on the Amazon website, and where do you see Amazon expanding physically, as we've seen with Whole Foods recently?
Good. That's a good question. Cars, that's an interesting one, because in Europe we've already expanded into the automotive sector. So right now we're not selling cars. I don't think we're selling cars, but we're already selling pieces of cars, or like parts and mechanical parts and stuff like that. And I think in the long-term vision, I say it's possible. I can give you an example. I was working on a deal to start selling houses through Amazon.
Oh wow!
This is a real thing, a few months ago. And then we got to a legal deadlock in which you need to have a special type of license to be able to sell houses. And so right now we're not doing it. But you can see in China, I think Alibaba's already, I'm not sure if it's Alibaba or someone else, but they're already selling houses in like an e-commerce website. So cars, yeah, it's definitely possible one day. Who knows? It's things are going to change a lot over the next 10, 20 years. So we'll see. And on the other one, on your question about physical stores, funnily enough, for some reason, I think I recall Jeff saying earlier in the days, our objective is not to have retail stores, physical stores at all. The future is online. And then some years later, that view kind of changed a little. But we're human beings, right? Things change. So you will see that in the US, there's already a number of Amazon stores, even without Whole Foods. There's a number of Amazon stores in which you can walk in and kind of get the Amazon experience, have a lot of the top selling products there. And then there's like iPads in which you can like log into your account and buy whatever you want to buy. And you have like special price and everything. And then of course you have, we have Whole Foods, which ideally we're going to implement the Amazon Go technology. So that's going to completely change the way we look at retail. I think, for example, when the automatic cashiers were introduced in the UK, people didn't really want, or at least the people that I know didn't really want to go to physical, to people actually scanning their products, and they'd go to the automatic ones because it's a little bit faster. When you have the ability to walking out of the store without even like taking your phone out of your pocket, that's going to be a game changer. I think we've all seen the videos, but doing it in practice, and once you start doing it and you realize how much time you're going to save in your life, that's going to be huge. So yeah, physical stores are going to happen.
Interesting. I think going back to the cars, it's interesting how Tesla during COVID was they were delivering cars to people. So, and that's what helped keep their sales up during COVID and why they beat expectations. So it would be interesting if Amazon can do the same and start delivering all kinds of things. So I think in terms of questions, the questions have finished. Unless anyone else has any other questions, before I close off on a few closing comments.
Sorry, Matteo.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? It's
morning.
Yeah. I want to have just a little question for Nasser because I'm really interested on this point. Nasser, a couple of minutes ago, we spoke about Alibaba, and I have really 2 quickly questions. The first one is, how is it difficult, and what is the strategy for Amazon in China if they are able to add the lead of the Chinese market? And the second one is, from the competition with Alibaba, did you manage to update or to insert some feature from their experience? For example, I know that e-commerce is really fundamental in China. And in Alibaba, you have thousands of details about all the product you can buy from them. And in Amazon, you don't have those details. So this is a little example. Can you give us a little summary?
Yeah, for sure. To answer your second question first, as I mentioned, some of the cultural points, one of the sentences that it's said very often at work is, we don't focus on competitors, we focus on the customer. So when we decide how to put the layout of the pages or how much information to put on the products, we do that based on feedback we get, because we run different A/B tests. We run a bunch of webinars. We have teams, specific teams. Their only job is to meet with customers and then understand what they're looking for. And we do this at scale, so with many people. And so I'm not, to be honest, I don't even look at the Alibaba website or any other e-commerce website because I'm not really interested in what they're doing. I'm interested in making sure that our experience, it keeps getting better and better for our customers. And the customers, when they come to the Amazon website, they have a positive experience. So I'm not sure how Alibaba does in respect to information. On your first question, which I'm going to address now, is strategy for China. Interesting one. So for many years, we've had a head of China, head of country, so a vice president who was in China, she was in charge of running the whole operations in the country. But of course, you may be aware that some countries, some Asian countries, in China being one of them, have restrictions in terms of like ownership in a certain part. You can only have part ownership in that country. And there's a bunch of restrictions because they obviously want to keep the majority of the businesses internal, that they want to keep it to people who are from China. And so Amazon China, I don't have that much visibility, but it's not that huge. It doesn't have the experience. I don't think we have fulfillment centers the way we do here, like automation and mechanisms and all of that. I don't think we have in China. So it's the strategy right now, it's not really there. But what I can tell you is in terms of international expansion, last year we launched Brazil, which has more than 200 million people. It's huge. We launched Turkey, with Turkey has more than 50 million people. We launched the MENA region, so Dubai was the first, UAE was the first one, but we have other countries launching soon. And there's other countries in the Nordics, such as like Norway and Sweden, and we have like Belgium and Netherlands, and a bunch of countries and Singapore also launched. So we have a lot of expansion plans.
Thank you much for the details.
All right, so I think that finishes the question. So before I close off, we just want to hit you guys with a quick question. If one or two of you could reply, what do you guys think of this time? At this time and this day, usually for this kind of call? Do you think it might not work? You know, lockdowns are going to end now, so people want to go out. What do you guys think?
No offense, but how mean is it to do it on a Friday?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. So initially, to give a bit of background around what we're doing, this started during the COVID crisis in Italy. So obviously everyone was at home, everyone was trying to find something to do. Now we're trying to. Sorry.
We still are at home.
Yeah, but soon things will open up again. So I guess this time and this day might not work as you're saying. So so it might be something that will change in the future. We'll see. But yeah, does anyone else have any opinions on that?
I think the time is great though.
Okay, so time's good, but obviously not the day because Friday, you know. Cool. So in terms of last few comments then before we close off, you may have noticed that I posted a link to a survey. So obviously this is like a new initiative that we're doing. We're trying to improve. Obviously things aren't perfect yet, but we want to improve. So we'd really appreciate any feedback that you guys have. So it's about 5 questions, roughly 5 quick questions, no emails, no names, nothing like that. So you can do it all anonymously. So I've posted the link there to the survey. So we'd really appreciate if you could fill it out quickly. It should take about a minute or so. I want to just also say, you know, this whole thing is about getting people from different countries across the industry to kind of connect and talk to each other. So if you know anyone who would be a guest speaker, or if you want to be a guest speaker one day and present something that you find interesting, please let us know. So make sure you follow our page if you don't already, because we have guest speakers every week. So it's easy for you guys to stay up to date. And a recording of this session will be posted in the next few days. So to finish off, I really want to thank 2 groups of people. And say, first of all, Nasser for his time in putting together this presentation. I know Friday is a weekend for you guys in in Dubai, I believe. So thanks for your time. Really appreciate that. And that was a really good presentation. And then also I want to thank everyone who joined this call. Obviously joining on a Friday, putting aside about an hour, a bit more than an hour of your time actually. We really appreciate you guys coming on board and asking questions, engaging with these insights from our guest speakers. So thank you, Nas. Thanks, guys. And I think this ends the call for this week. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.